I would love to share with you guys a little more about time in range. This is a very important topic. It's new, it's emerging. I'm sure a lot of you have seen people wearing these continuous glucose monitors, whether it's a Dexcom or a Freestyle. There's many popular companies who are bringing this device to people who don't have diabetes. So it's becoming part of the, regular conversation in the world of health and wellness. So let's talk about what it is. What is time in range? It's the percentage of time that a person spends with their blood glucose levels in a target range. So you can adjust that range. For people living with type 1 diabetes, the range is 70 to 180. Okay, that's the goal. This has been established by a group of professionals looking at the research and looking at trends in people with diabetes. And that is a healthy goal for somebody who doesn't have a pancreas that is working, okay? So the goal is to stay within that range for 70% of time, right? So whether you're looking at it over the course of 7 days or 30 days or 90 days, the goal is to be above 70%. That's the key here. They have a really strong suggestion to reduce lows, right? So this 4% here below target, you want to be less than or equal to 4%. Okay. So the goal is stay between 70 and 180 as much as possible. Avoid lows. Lows are dangerous, right? Hypoglycemia you can pass out, and that can cause all kinds of problems, right? So being a little high is a little safer. And so the guideline is that says minimize that as well, but really try and avoid those lows. So this research of different forms of managing type 1 diabetes, right? So I'm living with type 1. And in a New England Journal of Medicine 2019 paper, people who were using a closed loop system, on average, they were at 71%. So I'm going to show you some of my numbers today. I'm on a closed loop system, right? I use an Omnipod and a Dexcom G6. They communicate that that's a closed loop system. In the past, I have used MDI. And you can see here with the Beck et al. Article, JAMA 2017, 51% of people, people with type 1 diabetes in that study, 51% stayed within the range of 70 to 180, right? So just over half. And in the Lancet paper in 2016, that was 66% of people staying in range. So that's what happened. Now, this is my Dexcom. I took a screenshot of this this morning, and you can see the green 90% in range. So well above that recommendation of 70. And if you take 125 divided by 37, you want that number to be greater than 3 to demonstrate that your blood glucose variability is in a healthy range. You're not going super high and then it's going super crashing down. So I'm well above 3, and the GMI number is never accurate for me. It's 6.3% is always wrong, right? A1C, I think like 2 weeks ago, was 5.5%. So excellent blood glucose control following the mastering diabetes method here. Now for type 2 diabetes, the goal is 100% in range, right? If you're living with type 2 diabetes, your pancreas is still producing insulin. You follow a healthy protocol, like you should be 100% between 70 and 180. And this is an example of somebody who went through our program, Heather. She dropped her A1C from 9.2 to 5.2% following the mastering diabetes method. And you can see she's eating large meals, a very abundant green light foods here. She loves lifting weights. And when she came to us, she was using Zigduo and Trulicity, okay? So those are 2 powerful diabetes meds, and her A1C was still 9.2%. She got off the meds and got it to 5.2, and it's just feeling great. And you can see on the screen here, this was an example, a 9-day window of her average blood glucose readings, and she's consistently staying between 80 and 120, right? So that the thick black line that goes across, that's like, it has very small waves. So people who are concerned, oh man, like I'm going to have these roller coaster mountain type experiences. It's not the case. When this is done properly, you're following the mastering diabetes method, you can have extremely steady blood glucose readings in a low fat environment. That's the key here. This approach that we're talking about has been demonstrated by the longest lived populations all around the world. So all the green dots that on the screen here, they come from two amazing books, Healthy at 100 by John Robbins and The Blue Zones by Dan Buettner. And these are people who are known to have lived long, healthy lives, right? Low chronic diseases in these populations. And the key thing they have in common is that they all embraced whole carbohydrate-rich foods. There were some maybe different foods in different areas. Okinawa, Japan was this purple sweet potato. You know, many of the others were highly focused on beans, and they all embraced, you know, whole fruit when the season allowed, and they had dried fruit. So they had carbs, right? None of these groups of people were afraid of eating carbohydrate-rich foods. None of them were following a keto diet or a low-carb diet. They embraced carbohydrate-rich foods. Not every single one of them was following a less than 15% of calories from fat diet. That's not the case. But they were all embracing carbs as the predominant macronutrient ratio. And what I'm saying here today is if we know in 2024, with all the science that we have now, I can share with the science, I can share with the thousands of people who've been through our program, I can see it in my own body every day, that when you keep that fat low, you maximize your insulin sensitivity. So how do you do it? You do it with low-fat, plant-based whole food nutrition. That's how you reverse insulin resistance. That's how you make insulin work as efficiently as possible. That's how you reverse prediabetes. That's how you reverse type 2 diabetes. And as we saw in this presentation, that's how you can reverse kidney disease and lower your cholesterol and lose weight, a laundry list of conditions, okay? So let's see here. This is a funny picture. I hear this. This is me in 2008 eating some mangoes in Costa Rica. It's crazy how many people are scared of fruit, scared of the sugars in fruit. Fruit is not the same as table sugar, right? Fruit comes in a package with fiber and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and phytochemicals. It's this complex matrix. And the way your body processes it is truthfully beyond our comprehension. You know, there's so much about human biology that we just don't understand. We've learned a lot. We've discovered a tremendous amount. Boy, the complexity of what happens inside your trillions of cells when you eat that whole mango is something we don't understand, and maybe we will never understand. So this is our book here. Cyrus and I wrote Mastering Diabetes, published that in 2020. And we help a lot of people through our coaching program and through our education. And we'll open it up now to some Q&A. And I'll see if there's anything in the chat box that I need to look at. But
okay, so how you doing? Thank you so much, Robby, for all the information that you shared. How would people get in touch with you? They give you your website?
Yes, so the best place to get in touch with us would be through masteringdiabetes.org. That's the easy way to find us. We're on all the social media platforms. We have a podcast, so you could go to Apple or Spotify, type in Mastering Diabetes, you'll find us. Instagram, Mastering Diabetes. TikTok, Mastering Diabetes. Facebook, Mastering Diabetes. But yeah, website, masteringdiabetes.org. Google us. You'll hear us on a lot of other podcasts. The book's on Amazon. The book's on Audible. And we'd love to connect with you guys and help you maximize your insulin sensitivity.
Great, thank you. So we're going to begin the Q&A portion now of the presentation. For anyone who would like to ask Robby a question, you can raise your hand in Zoom. In order to do so, we'll put instructions in the chat. We don't take questions directly from the chat, so we just ask that you raise your hand. So give me 1 second here. Okay, so now I know you went over this whole presentation. What would be like the main takeaways? So, you know, so Mastering Diabetes, and in this presentation, you discussed the revolutionary method to reverse insulin resistance. Can you just summarize it in the key components?
Yeah, the key component is you've got to reduce your dietary fat intake from all sources, right? Whether especially so trans fat, saturated fat, those are the biggest problems. But even in avocados and edamame and nuts and seeds, like total fat intake needs to be reduced. whole carbohydrate intake needs to be increased, and it's basically that simple.
Okay. Well, I like it simple. I think, as I'm sure you've probably spoken or listened to a lot of people in the nutrition field, and it becomes extremely complex. You hear all these nuances, and it can become overwhelming to the point of like a paralysis analysis.
Correct. I
So,
love that you're saying that. I could not agree more. And that is something we're very passionate about at Mastering Diabetes. I mean, the recipes we have people eat, I mean, it's just stupidly simple, right? Like, and what I personally do, I've been doing for 18 years. I mean, a meal for me is mangoes, lettuce, and tomatoes. I mean, it's just like,
Billy,
it's just that simple. As a matter of fact, I'll be eating that exactly when we're done here today. I think I might even have some scallions in that one, but it just doesn't have to be that complex. It doesn't take a lot of time. You don't have to have a million ingredients. It can be very, very simple.
great. Thank you so much. And how do you address skepticism regarding the efficacy of a high fruit diet in managing diabetes, given traditional advice, often warning against high carbohydrate intake?
So number one is we would encourage people to look at the research, right? So this is what I just covered in this presentation, to really understand how low fat diets are helpful in optimizing insulin sensitivity. Then you could take a look and be like, okay, well, how much fat is there in fruit? And on average, the fruits are quite low in their fat content, maybe like 6 to 9% if you exclude things like avocado. So fruits are naturally low in their fat content. And then they have a laundry list of other benefits, which is we know that fiber helps slow down the absorption of glucose at a healthy rate. So whole fruits contains a lot of fiber. We know that the water content of whole fruit is very beneficial for satiety and also just flat out the best water you can consume. Water in whole foods is nature's filtering, right? There's no more pure water than the water that you consume in whole foods, right? Even if you're like baking a sweet potato or something, there's still a lot of water in that final product. Same thing with when you make, like brown rice pasta and stuff like that. It's actually absorbing the water, which is great. But back to the fruit. So we teach that number one, you got to understand that's low in fat. You understand that it's a whole food. And then number three, you get to experiment. We really encourage that people put this to the test in their own body. And once you have that experience, it's very powerful and you will never forget it. You're like, wait a minute, hold on a second. All I've read in my entire life about diabetes was be careful about how much fruit I have. And then I just tried the Mastering Diabetes program. I picked up the book. I followed the recipes for the 21-day meal plan in there. And I'm like, and wow, like when I actually do eat fruit in a low-fat environment, my blood glucose levels come down. My diabetes medication needs come down. And that's how I would address anybody who's like skeptical, but open-minded enough to try and solve the problem.
So to that point, there's obviously the idea that humans are herbivores, and then does your research suggest that we're fruitarians, that we're just meant to really eat fruit as our primary?
No, we don't go into that research. I can't say I've even read that research personally. So we believe that, whole plant foods is what we should be consuming and a variety that you enjoy. Some people might not even want to eat that much fruit. Okay, great. And that means you got to focus on the other calorie dense green light foods. So the way those green light foods are listed is in with the first 4 categories being the most calorie dense. So if you're not going to eat very much fruit, you're going to have to get calories from either starchy vegetables, beans, or intact whole grains. The first 4 categories have to be emphasized because the biggest mistake that people make when adopting a low-fat plant-based whole food diet is not eating enough calories. They start eating a lot of salad. They have this big salad that fills them up for like an hour, and then they're starving 2 hours later, 3 hours later. And they're like, oh, like I'm not getting enough protein. This diet isn't working. They go have a cheeseburger and all of a sudden they feel great again because they finally got the calories they needed. So you've got to focus on the green light foods that have substance.
So does this protocol work on everyone in your experience? And to the extent that it doesn't, what types of tweaks should people consider making?
Well, I would say that everybody's nuanced, and in 2024, there's plenty of complex health challenges out there. So to say that it's going to work for like flat out everybody, that would be an overstatement. But will it work for the overall majority of people? I would say yes. I mean, you're especially depending on where you're coming from, right? If you look at our population today, our diet is so far off from what is even like a basic healthy diet. And you think of all the different spokes of healthy living, that diet is where we have lost it the most, right? People still sleep, right? In general, people usually get some sleep. They probably should get more, but they get enough. They sleep. People move a little bit. They walk. They do some exercise. People drink water. People have, some love and community and connection in their life. Like in general, like these spokes people are sort of touching on. But my goodness, when it comes to diet, like we are so far away. So when you start changing towards this approach, I mean, you're going to get way more water, fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and you're likely going to see benefits.
And how does the mastering diabetes method cater to children, adolescents with diabetes, especially in terms of dietary recommendations and lifestyle changes?
Yeah, so Brenda Davis is an amazing expert. She wrote a book called Nourish. I forget who she wrote that with recently. And so I wouldn't say that I'm personally like an expert on children's health, right? We would lean on other experts, but from what I've gathered, it ends up being, quite similar. There are obviously some nuanced requirements for children you got to pay attention to. But in general, it's whole plant foods that it's being focused on for children's health. And we do have a rise in childhood obesity and childhood rates of type 2 diabetes, which is really sad to see these days. And I'm confident, I would, if somebody's like curious, like, oh, I got to figure out what to do for children's health, I highly recommend that book, Nourish.